Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. So, if you're a regular listener, you do know that I took last week off from producing an episode. As I had talked about the week before, I was actually pretty raw. It was literally a day or so after the passing of my father. He died on May 13th. So actually it wasn't a day or so. It was a day or two after his funeral, I should say. But my dad passed from an 11-month battle with mesothelioma or meso, however you want to pronounce it. It's basically caused by asbestos, likely from his time in the Navy and other things, but I don't want to spend much time on that, but that's pretty much what it's caused by. So 11-month battle with that. And I was just blessed to have a wonderful father. I don't want to, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I definitely say that I feel like now it's funny, not funny at all, but ironic, I guess. I've always, of course, when people have had a parent die, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But you don't get it till it happens to you. Like, and I don't think that's said in a bad way. Like, I don't think we should be rushing people along to have tragedy in their lives, but it's just that you don't know really. You're like, oh wow, this really sucks. And you offer people kindness and sympathy, but you don't. I mean, when it hits you, it's real. So but anyway, I did record an episode with my dear friend Oliver a few days after my dad's funeral, because I wanted to discuss grief, because I do think it's important we talk about it. He spoke about his mom, who died from bladder cancer 6 years ago. For him, he's had a little more time to settle with it. I, of course, have only had a few weeks, but last week I did take off just because I wasn't going to rush around to produce a show when I really didn't. I was trying to schedule guests and I just didn't have anyone scheduled for that particular week. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's okay that I don't have an episode. So that was last week, the end of May. There was no episode, but I did mention that May 27th was the actual 5-year anniversary of the very first episode with my dear friend Oliver, where we talked about summertime movies. So I am still in celebration mode for 5 years of the podcast. I had a really great event in April that was a film screening of Loud Enough Surviving Justice, which was about a woman who went through sexual assault and had to fight because the prosecutors did not want to prosecute. And I'm really excited to say that I'm going to have the woman who is behind that nonprofit that distributes those movies, Women Make Movies. It's this corporation, or I'm not sure if it's a nonprofit, but they only produce or distribute movies made by women. And I'm actually going to have the woman, the founder of that, on. And in fact, it's pretty cool. I'm excited to talk to her, but she's like, oh, I won't really be available till the end of June or July, because now she's running off to all these film festivals. She just came back from Cannes, I think Cannes, however you want to pronounce it, film festival, and then she's off to other film festivals. So I will get to have a conversation with her in July. I'm really excited about that. But as part of my 5 years of celebration, I'm trying to do some more in-person events. So I have more coming up in the works. I won't reveal too many yet, because I want to make sure the details are secure first, or settled. So I don't give anything away just yet. But I am happy to launch into June with all new guests. And I'm excited this week. This is another case of a person that I have not met in person. This is our first time meeting, but we have some really wonderful mutual friends. And I always like to say at the top of the conversation how we came to get connected, because, and as I was talking a little bit earlier before I hit record to my guest, I think it is so important. I'm a big fan. I'm an observer in life, and not everybody is. And I'm not saying it like I'm better, because I'm also not great at other things, but I'm an observer, which is great for my comedy, because humor comes from details and specifics. So I observe things, I remember things about people, and I like to store that away, because it is so nice to meet someone. And then maybe you run into them a month later, 2 years later, even, and you're like, oh my gosh, are you still in the XYZ business? Or do you still like yoga? Are you still co-owner of that ice cream shop? Whatever it is that you remember, because you never know what you can give one another. There's a mutual benefit, and human connection is just so important. And at the very least, just learning from one another. And that's not small. That's not small at all. Someone can share with you their hobby, something they've gained from their lifetime that they can pass on some wisdom. Or, like I said, you can end up helping one another. Maybe you can help refer someone and they can end up getting a job, or they can get clients, or they just, they find a piano teacher for their child. Whatever it is, we can help one another. And it's so important that we connect. So, my guest this week is Shay Jones Vitale. And Shay was actually introduced to me. We had kind of an encounter where she was at an event where I spoke in November, but Anthony Melf, who is, and I hope I said his last name right, Shay, you can tell me if I messed that up. Anthony is a lovely man in Northeast PA, and I met him about 2 years ago at a NEPA Networkers event. He came up, introduced himself to me, told me what his job was, and he was just a kind of guy that just wanted to meet everyone in the room, had a great big smile on his face, wonderful guy. He is now with Coffee Inclusive, which is a wonderful place, part of NEPA Inclusive. Coffee Inclusive is in Pittston on Kennedy Boulevard. If you go there, it's they have people working there with disabilities or different abilities. So I don't want to say anything wrong, but people with different abilities working there, and it's just a wonderful place. They have the bakery now, they have the coffee shop, and Anthony works there. And I often see him when I pop in, and he always has a smile for me. And he's the one that reached out and said, Shay would make a wonderful guest for your podcast. And we spoke for just a couple minutes before I hit record, and I'm like, oh yeah, Anthony was right. So without further ado, I welcome my guest this week, Shay Jones Vitale. Welcome, Shay.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and Anthony is a great person to be connected to, and I kind of like the joke, the six degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. It's like Anthony Melf. No matter where you go in the greater Wilkes-Barre area, he is popping into somebody that he knows or yeah, and I've met him through a friend, a really good friend, several years ago, and he's just been a great person to know. And I didn't create this term, but like I use it. It's called like friend tour. Lots of people in my
Mm.
life that like we mentor each other and we're friends, and he is one of my great friend tours. So really grateful for the connection he made for you and I to get together.
I've never heard that term, and I love it. I think it's great. And I will say, to your point with Anthony, if you're friends with him on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can just see how busy
Yeah.
he is. And I love his life because he seems to love his life, which makes it joyful. But he's networking, he's running a marathon, he's out having drinks, or he's out celebrating. He's always doing something fun. And I also love that because people who know me know that I'm a fan of this region. I think, every place has its problems, but we have a lot of great people here, a lot of great businesses, a lot of great events, a lot of great architecture, nature, and he seems to take advantage of a lot of it. And I love that about him too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So Shay, we were talking before I hit record. It's interesting. I didn't know much about you. I think when Anthony kind of said, Shay's in the wellness space, her interest is there. And then I went on your LinkedIn and just did a quick, not too deep of a dive, but I see that you're a social worker. And we talked a little bit before I hit the record button. And I do have some specifics that I want to follow up with you on because you mentioned them. But before we get into that, why don't you share, just so the audience gets to know you just a little bit? Like, are you from Northeast PA? Tell us a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, let's start with a little trivia. I go by Shay, but my government name is Shalia. So that's a little known fact. You can call by Shalia or Shay. Yeah, I've been in the northeastern Pennsylvania region most of my life, the Kingston, Wilkes-Barre area. And briefly, in a past life, I quit my job at a bank and moved to the beach, Ocean City, Maryland, and that was my home for a couple of years while I was going back to school. Great adventures, and definitely a non-traditional path in life. So full circle, came back to the Wilkes-Barre area and have been here since 2010 and just working in the social work, the psychology field, human services field. And every course I've taken has just been more self-development, self-improvement. So I like to say my master's in social work is the most expensive degree or the most expensive therapy that I've never actually taken. Um, and also therapists also need therapists. So just normal, I like to normalize that even though we know the things, we still need support for the things. So I am always looking for more connections. And part of my journey is also just really understanding the connection with our nervous system. And so much of our maladaptive behaviors are from like unresolved trauma responses that come from a dysregulated nervous system. And so I really got into mindfulness-based practices for recovery. And that's been a cool niche for me. And in my own personal journey, just recognizing that you don't need to be somebody who is, a statistic or a stereotype to have problematic behaviors. And so I say, like, most of us are in recovery from something, whether it's anger or maybe drinking too much, smoking, whatever. And so I just think yoga has also been something that has been really healing for me. And when I say yoga, I don't mean having to be on a mat in a matching suit, doing bends. I mean connecting to your breath and your body and just slowing down enough to get out of fight and flight. That's where the magic happens. So yeah, along my journey, I've had some really cool experiences, and yeah, I've found a niche for myself where I currently work for a company called EDSI, and I've been just like, again, like not expecting the path. I was unexpectedly didn't have a job. We lost funding in a nonprofit. I was working in drug and alcohol, and that my friend Anthony Melf called me up and said, "Hey, I know you just got this like social work degree. They're hiring them at the Career Link. Would you like to like maybe look at that?" And that was my journey at EDSI 6 years ago. And I've been a really cool grassroots part of how do we integrate mental health into the workforce system, because that is a barrier. If we can't get a job, keep a job if we're not regulated. So just teaching our job seekers how to have that as a soft skill. And then also the staff, teaching them empathetic customer service. And also, how do I regulate myself when I'm seeing all of this? So that has been part of my journey. And then in the last year or so, just getting involved with the local chamber and trying to launch this stuff for myself, realizing how much I really enjoy what I do for my corporate job and wanting to just lean more into the holistic aspect of wellness. Go a little bit deeper than I can with my job seekers. And so I do, holistic empowerment coaching with folks. I do that one-on-one. I do that with other agencies that maybe want to heal the healer, give more knowledge, and just always from a place of curiosity and growth mindset. So, yeah, happy. I
Okay.
don't know if that was,
I was going to say, I want to stop you there because that's a lot. No, I think it's all wonderful, but I want to take time to like to really to get into a
yeah,
little bit more of it, and to make sure we don't gloss over. I want to get into some things here. So, um, this idea of, and I know what you mean, but for listeners to understand this whole like the parasympathetic or nervous system, we're anymore, I feel like, and maybe I shouldn't say anymore because let's face it, as I've taken some, I just finished an 8 week mindfulness based stress reduction course, and it was a lot. And I'm like, I understand at the end of it why there were people sitting in there who've taken it 4 or 5 times, because I'm like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I am not practicing it and I need to do it and do it and do it. People were being chased by tigers back in the day, right? We're not anymore, but is it that it's that idea that like we kind of like the body feels like we
yeah,
are. And
totally.
social media, I don't always want to blame it because it's really, I like to say we do need to take accountability of whether we put it down or not, but it is addictive. And I feel like that, and like just the stress and negativity of so much that's going on in the world, I feel like unless you work at it really hard, and I'm working at it,
Yes.
but not sometimes hard enough, you are always, many people can really be like
Mhm.
totally activated like all the time, right? The nervous system,
Yeah,
right? Is that,
totally.
talk to us, I mean, a little bit about like what's going on there.
I love that as a something to focus in on. I think that's a great question. And yeah, it's subtle. I think it's subtle. It's everything that we are taking in, everything we're receiving is having an impact. So to take this huge, and I took the 8 week course as well. I also did 200-hour yoga teacher training, both of those with the intention of, I'm going to have a daily practice. I'm going to have it. I feel so good when I practice daily. I am still struggling like in the last 2 weeks, still finding ways. And that's it. You just need to keep um, awareness is the first step. You can't change what you're not aware of. And compassion. That's the biggest thing from the mindfulness-based course is if you can have self-compassion with the observation, your journey, you're on the journey, you're doing it. Perfection isn't the end goal. That's never going to be the end goal. It's becoming a little bit better each day at a time. And I would say to your point, everything that comes into our filter, our senses, yeah, it impacts our nervous system in a way of even the way that modern society is. the rushing, the getting to, the back to back, the immediate gratification of reels on a phone. It's all of these little micro things that add up to a big response. And one way that I know my stress response is kicked is I literally have not checked in with like, I don't even feel my breath. So like something as simple as connecting your breath to your body, not being present in your body is you're functioning. Like a lot of us are functioning in this mode. And then how I also know I'm overdoing it is when I get home after a long day or after a long week, it's like functional freeze. You cannot do anything. Like you're just laying. You almost feel bad about it. But that's the opposite of after you've run a marathon or outrun a tiger, your heart rate is exhausted your body. And the natural response is, again, I've gone too far in the fight or flight, the activation. Now I'm going too far to overcorrect with the resting, the flopping, the burnout. If we can find a way to just have this more manageable, and you're going to have seasons of it where you ebb and flow, especially bringing it back to like a season of grief, a season of loss, a season of change, transition, vacation, good stuff even. Yeah, we finding that balance. And when I realize I'm out of it, you're just starting again with no judgment or, anger towards yourself. That's the hardest part is just, hey, I observe it. What do I do with it?
Yeah. And that's something I took it. Lisa Regau is the woman that taught it here, but I'm sure it's based on a program from Harvard. I forget the gentleman's
Yep.
name, but with the Buddhist, idea in there, which I love when I heard it. And I'm sure anyone who's familiar knows that it's like most of our discontent comes from wishing things were different than the way they are. And it's like,
Yes.
hello, and it's
It's wild. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, oh, I wish it wasn't raining. We were going to go do this. Or, oh my God, my
Yep.
computer is now, what am I supposed to do? And then I'll curse for 20 minutes and then go, well, it's stuck. So what are you going to do? Like, it's
Doesn't
that
change it.
wishing. It doesn't change it. And it's the simplest, like, yeah, that's right. But it's not so simple
Yes.
to respond in a way that is healthy. And that's the part.
Totally.
And so taking that for 8 weeks, I gotta say, it was an investment of
Mhm.
energy and learning things that and I know we're really, like, we were encouraged not to say things like good or better because it's not
Yes.
a contest, you're not whatever. But I do feel, for me, I'm definitely different than I was years ago when I wasn't aware and I
Mhm.
didn't seek tools like this. Now I'm seeking them, but I'm like, and to your point, you said before, Elise always says, begin again. So when
Yeah.
you quote unquote, I'll use the word fail in quotations because it's not failure. It's like the thing you didn't want to do. Okay, I didn't want to lose my patience. I just did. I didn't want to give a sarcastic answer to someone. I just did. So guess what? Stop. Maybe
Yeah.
apologize if you feel the need or whatever, but begin again, as opposed to like thinking, well, that's it. You know what? I'm never going to fix myself, or I'm never going to feel better. And it's just taking that course made me realize, really hone in on the word practice, practice,
Totally.
practice.
And that's my niche, that's my wheelhouse. There's so many different modalities in the mental health field, and the one that I just come back to over and over that I just think when I'm working with clients, they resonate to. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm not sure if you've heard of
Mm-mm.
DBT. You
No.
just basically explained it. DBT is built, it's actually created by somebody called Marshall Lenehan. I love to consume a memoir. I love a memoir that is written by somebody who is sharing the knowledge, usually something in the psychology or self-help field, and they're telling their personal story. She is somebody that was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder,
Mm.
and she, in her early teens and 20s, she was realizing like these treatments weren't working for me, and she went down this path of what was working for her, and it was DBT. So she built this modality. She has a book called Building a Life Worth Living. Excellent, really excellent, great book. You can learn about DBT, and as a therapist, you can also pick up some quick tips on how to teach people DBT, but it's basically radical acceptance, right? Like when I cannot accept my reality, that causes great distress, right? Or I wish something to be different than it was. And you also use things like good, bad. There's multiple things can exist at once, right? I may not like this situation, and also I'm working towards fixing it. When you can hold space for two things, it just like turns down the intensity of those emotions. And acceptance, like accepting that. things don't stay the same. Things may not be the way I like them. But what can I find the joy in? Like to me, DBT is a skill for most people. And also like in the recovery field, um, addiction is like we're trying to avoid, like things are too painful. I don't want to be present for this, or I need to like change it. Accepting that pain is part of life, suffering is optional. That's kind of like the quick hit that I think I get from mindfulness-based recovery too, is like, hey, sometimes I'm gonna have to feel pain and grief, but it doesn't have to be like torture. I can find things in it that are, yeah, like I think we talked a little bit about the concept of post-traumatic growth,
Hmm.
that what doesn't totally destroy me, if I'm willing to get curious, learn, and grow from it, I can become an even more badass person than I used to be. Like that version doesn't exist anymore because of all the learning that you've done and the resiliency that you've had. And that didn't break me. Like, bring it on. And I think that that's the season I'm in right now. Is I think I've been through a post-traumatic growth season a couple years back, and so some of the trials I'm having now, I'm like, what is this teaching me? Versus why is this happening to me? Um,
Yeah.
and it's not toxic positivity. It's like I'm in my mindset. Like I have to be able to get through life. Do I want to do that with a miserable mind space or a hopeful one? And it's no judgment to anybody that's still struggling with that. It's a skill. It's a skill
Yeah.
set that takes
And it
time,
takes practice, right? Yeah. Yeah.
because it's hard to see yourself as part of the problem, right? Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah. Yeah.
it's exhausting when you're already exhausted from a burnt out nervous system. Like it's hard sometimes to get started. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, and it was one of the things I had written down, and I mean, I've heard it before, but I don't know that we talk a lot about it, but it is out there. Talk a little bit more about toxic positivity.
Sure.
Because I mean, I understand it, and but I don't feel like it's really brought up that much. But
Yeah.
yet you'll hear it occasionally, maybe even in sitcoms or like different things. And I have heard it a couple times out there in the world. But like,
Mhm.
let's share a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even in a past job, like my nickname was Polly, like Pollyanna. And hey, listen, I don't necessarily think that's my perspective, but I think that would be the poster child for toxic positivity is like, buck up, it's fine. No, I just think that like every single person has the capacity to change if they want to, if they want to take the support. And so again, working in drug and alcohol, I can plant the seed, I can show you the way, I could hold space for you. There is nothing special and unique about me on this side of the desk versus you. That's my perspective. If it's looked at as Pollyanna, like it is, but toxic positivity is basically like, let's ignore that. Let's shove that down. Don't like that's like, I'll give you something to cry about, or aren't you grateful? Like, what do you have to be sad about? Life can be so good. I think toxic positivity is not holding space for both things. It's making people feel bad that they feel bad, telling people to just buck up. I think it's a part of emotional maturity, right? Emotional intelligence, that we can express upset feelings and process them, without like we have to see them for what they are, but also um, hold space and process them. Toxic positivity doesn't want you to hold space. It doesn't want to acknowledge it. It just wants to gloss over it. And I think that's where, no, we need to have gratitude. We need to have perspective. That's part of getting to good again. When you've been dysregulated, toxic positivity doesn't allow you to process it. It just wants you to get to good.
And isn't it too, and maybe I had misunderstood it, but I also feel like I've seen this in different people where it's like you never see them feel anything but
Yeah.
the like almost like a plastic face or Barbie where it's like, hey, no, everything's great, is everything great? And they never reveal, not that they
Yeah.
need to spill their
Mhm.
guts all the time or have the drama, but it's like it's always that where it's like almost like, well, geez, that person, because we've all known that person
Yeah.
where you're like, geez, that person, they never have any bumps in the road for themselves, where maybe they're doing that as a shield or whatever. But that can be toxic because can be toxic to them, or for them, I should say, right? When they're
Sure.
not like, they don't have to reveal everything, but they can't always be fine.
I think that like dips a toe into the power of vulnerability. I think that um yeah, like an older version of me, a less healed version of me wouldn't be comfortable letting the mask fall. I wouldn't be comfortable letting somebody see me in a light that I'm still struggling to accept. So I think that that's maybe just like the curiosity part of it is maybe that person hasn't reached that part of their journey where they're comfortable being vulnerable or unmasked with anybody who's not in their inner circle. And we also know families that like we just don't talk about that.
Mm.
So I just think it it takes like a level of strength to be vulnerable. And yeah, not a judgment on somebody else who's not there, but I think sometimes we think we have to put that up to be taken seriously or be professional. And yeah, I mean, it's just not realistic that we're not going through seasons of life. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I'll admit that's something I wouldn't use the word struggle because that would be a little too strong, but like that I certainly think about and process when because for me, I have my own business and I pretty much am the business. I don't have a staff and it's the type of thing where I'm leading laughter yoga. I have a podcast. I'm doing stand-up comedy. It's me. So I don't mind. Again, I'm at 54. I'm saying this. I don't mind. I don't know what would have done 25, 30 years ago, but I don't mind sharing. Like I'm talking about perimenopause. I'm talking about my father's, cancer struggle and where we're at. I don't mind at all because I think people like to hear those things because it lets them know they're not alone. And it's just human for me. A lot of times as a presenter,
Yeah.
I don't mind because it breaks down this any facade where I'm like, this is me. I'm pretty raw and real. But then sometimes from like a marketing, whatever professionalism standpoint, I'm like, am I talking too much about perimenopause? Or am
Sure.
I,
Yeah.
which to some people maybe. And then there's part of me that's like, well, if they don't like it, then I'm not the brand or flavor for
Mm,
them. But I do struggle with it for me as like from a business or even marketing kind of
definitely.
standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example of like DBT is all about finding balance. It's not all, it's not nothing. And you're also like making me think about um every couple of months or so, I have something else on my personal growth journey that I'm working towards. And one of them in the past was like, how do I lean into my authentic self? Like, I think when you're on a journey of like, what's too much, what's not enough, especially when you're building a brand, right? Like, you do still want to be wise or strategic while also being true to who you are. And there's so many different voices in the field that are selling something or representing something. So like, yeah, you do want to find the balance of who am I authentically? What does my brand stand for? And I think, yeah, I mean, unless you want to niche into perimenopause and do it the best and the funniest that anyone's ever done, I think you're allowed to talk about any topic that is relevant to helping others or connecting with others. And if that's the season of your life that resonates with you, other people will buy it or not. I think you can't sell to everybody, and that's okay. You're not meant to. You're meant to resonate and connect with the ones when you are being your authentic self and you are selling authentically for your brand. And you're also allowed to shift that up from time to time, right? Like there's always rebranding too when a company or a CEO is changing or growing.
Yeah, yeah. I just never sometimes in my mind I'm like, am I oversharing? And then I'm like, nah, I don't care.
I get
Like,
that. And honestly, that's the truth. I think yeah, especially when you're like nerding out about things and you're like, "Oh, I just learned this thing and I can't wait to talk about it." Like, yeah, I think I could talk about this stuff all day long. And also, I think telling personal stories is hearing other people's personal stories. I think some of the memoirs along my journey, like Marshall Lenahan's, there's been a handful more that just I'm like, wow, those are great. It was people being vulnerable to share their voice and their story in respectable, professional ways that had a purpose. Like, is there a purpose to it? If I'm just, like you said, dropping the mask and crying in a puddle, is that helping me or helping you? Versus, like, am I using my story of vulnerability to impact? Is my voice impacting? Then I think, yeah, finding a way to deliver that message is really important.
Yeah. Along those lines, I want to ask you, and this is more like just your opinion. It could be based on your experiences in your life or whatever. But you mentioned before I hit the record button, I think you mentioned Mel Robbins and
Yep.
Brene. Is it Brene Brown, right?
Brene Brown, yeah.
I've listened to both of them, and I please no shame here, no hitting me, but I know that you wouldn't hit me, but
I would
like
never hit you.
verbally, I'm just saying. I'm gonna tease here for a minute. I kind of have to tell you, I'm kind of over the let them. I'm over
I
that.
hear you. I hear
I'm
you.
because, but I kind of also feel like I want to, do a joke or at sometime be like, do you think Mel Robbins ever like looks in the mirror and is like, oh my God, I said more than that? You know what I mean? Like, is it to reduce to
For
2 words?
sure. Yes.
And I get that that's like, I feel, and I'll use my own words to color how I feel. Unfortunately, I feel it's unfortunate that in the world we live in, the society we live in, because of, like we said earlier, everything, we're so impacted, we're taking in so much, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of us don't know how to make appropriate boundaries or to set this down and
Mhm.
focus, hone in on this voice as opposed to that. There's a lot of noise out there.
There
So
is.
unfortunately, I feel like all of these folks, these influencers and people with stuff,
Mhm.
you have to have the 5 ways to that, the 3 ways to this, that it's got to be bullet points, and it's this let them 2 words because that's all people want to embrace. And for me, I just get annoyed because I'm like, I know there's more to it, and I kind of get sick of hearing that. But also, it's hard as a creator, a content creator, because I feel like there is so much noise, and people tend to really want it in a bite-sized morsel to like lure them in. And maybe I'm just jealous because I haven't reached that. I haven't gotten the formula yet because I'm like, let them come on. But what's your take on all that
Yeah.
blathering I just did there?
I can have a take on almost anything. If you haven't noticed, I can have a take on almost anything. So the thing is, I did listen to that audiobook. I thought it was good. I also think that the other point that's missing is it's not just let them, it's also and then let me. And I think that's the part of like, hey, that radical acceptance, like all these theories kind of blend and layer on each other because we're all talking about human behavior in a different way, right? So yes, let them be my emotionally immature aunt or uncle. Let them fire me. Like, let them, whatever, knock on wood, don't do that. Don't fire Shay. But then let me respond in a way that honors my authentic self. Let me respond in a way that sets a boundary. And also, this is trial and error forever because what you're bringing to that interaction and what the other person is always going to be in flux, right? Like depending on what just happened this month, this year, what happened today, what history that we have, how many times I've had to set this boundary. So I think let them would be fires everywhere, children like falling off of cliffs. Like we're not just going to let them all the time. Let me also step in and do what I need to do to set the boundary to communicate. Like it's the personal responsibility part of can I accept them and what can I do to respond? Because literally the only thing I do have control over with everything around me is my response and my reaction. And back to the nervous system, if I'm already dysregulated, I don't even have time to pause and think before I might have the dang it, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do the let me that way. Um, Yeah, I think anything can be overly simplified. And also, I think when you were talking about all the information we receive, anybody can post anything on a video or a reel and pretend to be an expert. I still think it's discerning information, doing your own research, and filtering, finding ways to filter out. Is that in alignment with me? Do I need that? Um, yeah, I just think filtering is part of the ongoing journey of what do I need,
Yeah.
which is
And
going back to self.
yeah, I feel like and again, I one of the pieces that I struggle with that I'll freely admit, I'm
Mhm.
still in judgment mode. I
Sure.
come from a long line of judgers. So for
Heard.
me, I do have that like, they ought to be doing it this way. But I do feel like the more we allow ourselves to be
Mhm.
caught up in the way that it just is like, oh, there's all this noise and I'm just going to keep scrolling and I'm not going to really engage, or I'm not going to really take time to go, what's the article? Where is that from? Is
Mhm.
that even a real publication? What kind of publication? Before I go ahead and share it. Like that's on us. And I even when I was teaching, and I haven't been teaching since 2020, but when I was teaching then, and things have even changed since then, I would
Mhm.
tell the students it is so important that you discern, like you said, where is this information coming
Mhm.
from? And don't be lazy about it. And that's a judgment in a way, but like take
Yeah.
the time is my point because it's important. It's so
Mhm.
important. It's not good enough to just go along, and it's definitely not if you're going to share. If you're
Yeah.
sharing a post or you're going to tell a friend like, whoa, where did that come from? Like,
Mhm.
and even stuff that you want to, like, for me, like politically or whatever that you agree with, I'll see friends share things and I'm like, okay, I agree with what they want to be true, but that looks like a meme that could have been made by anyone. It's not
Yes.
like, is this true? Where's the news source for this? And I think it's hard, which is probably why a lot of us aren't taking the time to do it, but it's important.
Yeah, and I think that's another reminder for like everything in small doses, right? So like judgment exists to help us stay safe. All of our initial reactions, whether it's anxiety or anger or the fight, the flight, the freeze, it's all serving a purpose, including judgment. So if we could like had 0% judgment, like the all or the none, we need to have just the right amount in that situation. And that's the part of the work that's hard is when you are asking people to lean into the gray area. People love black and white. They love a yes or no, a check a box. And to really find peace, sustainable peace, it is much more fluid and it's much more, maybe it depends. And I think that's a lot about the mindfulness-based stress reduction course is like just maybe. When I was doing yoga teacher training, I had a really cool, they leaned a lot into the spirituality aspect and they leaned a lot into is it wrong or is it just different? Like, because we were
Mm.
all coming virtually from the Himalayan Institute. Great, great, cool place up in Honesdale,
Yeah, mocha
Pennsylvania.
chocolate right there. I love it.
Yes, the cafe right there, the chocolate, but Himalayan Institute, amazing, amazing place to go walk the grounds. Great
Mhm.
staff that works there, and I did a virtual yoga teacher training, not because I aim to teach yoga, but because I wanted to continue learning and growing. And that was the biggest part I got out of it was, again, just like is it wrong or is it just different? And I don't know, that's just like so many things can be reduced down. These big, huge theories can be reduced down to like, but does it apply to you? How does it apply to you? Nothing should be like a one size fits all kind of solution. Yeah. I think just a lot of the work that I like to do with people is just like helping people understand their mind, their body, their spirit, and connecting them, right? That's the tripath of what I'm trying to do is just like what energizes your mind might be different than mine, and what is, stressing your body might be different than mine. So like it is a personal journey of how you get those three areas, your mind, your body, and your purpose. Like I think spirit can also be called like purpose. I think it's when one is out of alignment or one is overworked, the other one you know, can't hold the wheel up. So I think it's just finding the balance for you too. Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things. You mentioned the is it just different or wrong? And
Yeah.
that we'd kind of talked about that. For me, that is really hard. Again, coming from a
Hmm.
long line of judges and from being raised Catholic. And I only bring that up because there was clear right and
Yeah.
wrong. And this,
Yeah.
I'll admit, even though I still attend mass. My father was buried, funeral,
Hmm.
burial mass, beautiful mass. I don't attend church anymore. I feel like nature, the forest is more
Yes.
my
Yeah.
religion, my practice, so to speak. But I still have a very, again, I was raised this way and I'm not sorry for it at all, a very good sense of right and wrong in the sense of how we consider others and what we
Mm.
do and how it impacts them. So I'll
Yes.
admit, and I am Gen Xer, I feel like the younger generation does a better job at like, well, I am not as good at that because I do feel like we've gotten so into the and one of my good friends, Gab Vanessa, we talk about this here on the podcast about giving people grace. And I said, I
Hmm.
get that. But what about the people, and excuse my French, who are always assholes or like
Hmm.
who are always not considering others? You know what I mean? This
Hmm.
this and this is just my recent, it just I struggle with like, okay, I had to call the cops recently on a neighbor in the back who had a literal speaker amplifier that you'd have at a bar for a band. This is not acceptable. Like, so it's not just like, hey, that's his cool thing. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
I want to have peace, and not just peace and quiet. I don't want to have my eardrums bursting or
Yeah.
like there's so many, and I won't go down my grumpy old lady or grumpy old man path with like, that's wrong, that's wrong. But I will admit, and I'm glad, I guess I'm glad, I'll lean in and be curious that I'm glad I still struggle as opposed
Mhm.
to all go all the way over with like these people are all terrible. I still struggle a little bit because I want to be like, okay, step back, but at the same
Mhm.
time, because I know I can't change it. So I do want to step back mostly for my own health because I'm like, I'm learning
Yeah.
where is your energy going? And I mean, yes, in that case, I did call the cops. They did go up to him and they said, you can't have it this loud. And he turned it down. But I can't police the whole world. And my friend Gab, I mentioned before, I love this phrase because she called it out in me that I have like a social justice warrior in me. And
Hmm.
that social justice warrior, I wish would go take a nap for a while, like maybe hibernate for a bit because I'm often activated because of that.
Totally.
That person littered. That has me tired a lot. So
I
that's just
feel that. Yeah, I'm getting exhausted. Yeah, I feel like social justice is a huge part of like the social work field. And again, it's like practice of like tempering it down because if I, especially in this political climate, right? It's just so volatile. There's just so much discourse. Um, how can I stand up for my belief system, my value system? How can I weed through some of the things that are meant to activate me, right? I have to pace myself because if there really is a need for me to get my cape out and to swoop in and take some social justice action, like legitimately, I'm going to be drained. And so like that's just pace yourself. Is this like I think that's good just it's all of these skills are simple. They're simple, but it's just slowing down enough to ask the question, why is this activating me? Do I need to be activated by it? What could I do to turn the volume down? What do I have control over in this situation? And then you'll figure out, like, not to bring Mel up again, but like that's that part of like, yeah, I mean, let him in the way that I'm not going to be activated. I'm going to calmly dial the police. I'm going to rationally explain because you can't even fight the justice battles or be your best version of yourself if you're dysregulated. And that's the part of like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but no matter what, I got to find a way to regulate so that I can get the cape on. Yeah.
I love what you're saying there because it does make sense. I just need to remember it when it happens because it's like I truthfully, because I feel like me getting mad or angry or whatever, it's like I feel guilty. I'm like, well, I'm wrong. I'm not wrong because I mean there are actual
Yeah.
laws about ordinances, but it's how I handle myself. It's like
Yeah.
am I going to be the crazy neighbor that's like cursing about it? That's not what does it do for me? It doesn't help me, honestly. You're
Yeah.
right.
How does this serve you? Yeah.
How
How
does
does
it
this serve
doesn't help
you?
me. So I want to be that's like, okay, I can call the cops, but be calm to your point. And
Yeah.
trust me, I have thought about this is the part that drives me crazy because I spend a lot of energy on this. It's like I don't just let myself off the hook and go, well, you're just being a curmudgeon. I'm like, what can I control? I do lean into that because I even this is so bad. I ordered myself headphones that like construction workers wear. And I mean, he's been good lately, but I'm like, what can I do? Knowing that he may not, and he's been good,
Mhm.
like because he was told by the cops not to have it that loud. But if that were to continue, because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, and this, I mean, this could seem like laughable to someone, but when we're talking about our mental health, it's not laughable. I
Yeah.
got myself, and this is literally like a week. This is happening the day of my father
Yeah.
viewing, a day after dad's funeral. I'm already in a space where I have to manage my own grief, however I'm going to do that, and then this. And so now I got myself where I'm like literally hearing music when it's not even playing. Like that's where I was at. I was like, is he playing music? And I've gotten myself there and I'm like, ooh, that's not a good place to be. So it's really I do struggle with that because I'm like,
Mm.
how can I protect my
Yeah.
mental health and wellness? And it's real. The
Yeah,
struggle is real.
but also like that's that part of like feeling it to like you have to feel to heal, right? I don't know if you like a catchphrase, but like there's something inside of you that is like whether that's grief coming up as sadness, anger, whatever, you're needing an outlet for it. And so, oh, can I go yell at him? Like, do I hear music now? Like, I just think that like you wouldn't be having these reactions if it like human behavior is human behavior. There's almost always a reason why something is going on. If you're curious and you want to like give yourself compassion, like that's the part of where compassion starts and the grace starts is like there must be a reason. My nervous system is subconscious and it's operating on a level high speed, like more, faster than I can even catch it. Like if we can have start there with grace, that sounds like that might work for you, is just like there must be a reason for this reaction. I don't need to get stuck in the weeds of why. Let's move forward with like what now? And I think that for me, I'm real solutions focused in that way. Like, hey, if I have some extra time and headspace to kick around some whys later, maybe I'll journal about it. But I'm in survival mode. Like, I'm allowed to feel this way, but it's not serving me. What next? What now? How do I move forward? And I think that's also a great reminder that we don't like, just like he doesn't know, or that neighbor, she doesn't know what's going on in your life under the straw that got the emotion out. We don't know what their story is either, talking
Yeah.
more about masking. We are just neighbors with this person. So I think the compassion of we don't know what's going on with somebody else, but kindness can be a good just it's not for them, it's for you. It's for your peace and the impact that that energy has on when you've been having a terrible day. Sometimes kindness over anger just like melts the Grinch heart sometimes. You know?
Yeah. And I do need to, I think of that too with Lisa, the mindfulness course. She would always say, lead with
Yeah,
kindness. And that between that and the judgment, those are my tough ones, which is funny because it's
yeah.
like I can be a kind person. I am usually a kind person, but I am also often I see anger flare up and I hear the words in my head with like lead with kindness. So don't be, and I'll tell myself, don't be an asshole. Like, but like it's a constant like practice, balance,
Well,
struggle.
and here's that like all it's not that all or nothing. How can I be less of an asshole in this situation? Like I just think how
I
can
like
I
that
take the
less, not
volume down?
completely not an asshole.
Listen, we all have the ability to I think of things on a spectrum. We are always have the ability to be many things in this world, depending on many factors. Good, bad, or in between, we're all capable of the same range of emotions and behaviors. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just think, how can I be a little less activated? And also, you caught me on a great day. I knew I was going to be seeing you. So, like, do as I say, not as I do. Do not secret video at my house when I am totally dysregulated from four different things that happened that day. I just think it's normal to again, that's part of, I think on my drive to today, I was also thinking about like self-forgiveness because like, yeah, you can get stuck in, I did it again. I did it again. One more thing to dislike about this version of me and versus, hey, if I look back at three other versions of me, I'm actually doing pretty good. I would have had esteemed to be this version, this Zen version, and it gives you excitement for like if I keep learning and I keep growing and I keep connecting with awesome people who shift my perspective just that much more or give me more wisdom, um, how badass can I be in 10, 20, 30 years? So like I just yeah, I guess one more final thought about this like life journey that we're on is the yoga class I went to. It was a lot of like, and I bring up imposter syndrome sometimes, like who
Mm.
am I, or like somebody's always the better one. And this course, this lady Judy, she's amazing. Judy is amazing from HI, great person. And one of her philosophies was like, I'm paraphrasing it, but if we're doing life right, we are the teacher and the student simultaneously. Like in that yoga class, whether I'm teaching or I'm consuming somebody else's course, like every teacher is still a student. Like you're never reaching the end of knowledge. And I think yogic philosophy paired with like all the mental health training I've had has just been, like I said, that mind-body connection and the spirit, the value, the meaning. What do you do with it now? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I like to look at that when I'm starting to feel like, who are you to share your voice? Actually, you might be teaching somebody something so valuable, and also, what can I learn from you?
Yeah. And that's something that came up in our course too. Lisa had mentioned
Yeah,
that she's like, I'm leading it, but I'm learning as well. We're all the student and the
always.
teacher. But I want to go back to a point you made
Yeah,
too about like, kind of like, be to go back to the funny, like be less of an asshole. And I just
yeah,
want to say that sometimes I feel I will say through these past couple of years where I am allowing myself to learn different skills and tools and mindfulness and lean into more of a Zen philosophy and everything. I'm getting better at being able to believe that this idea, and I think we all need to work on this, the idea that different things can exist at the same time. Like, okay, I felt like I was just an asshole, but then I go, well, how could I be that? Because I thought I was a good person. You can be both. And emotions can shift on a dime. And you
Oh,
can have, and I know for myself with losing my dad recently, you can I believe in, of course, you have to have laughter as well. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the dark jokes that I'm coming up with and the humor that happened with my dad with hospice and everything else that's coming up. I'm literally working on, I'm going to be doing, I want to do an online show with a few other comedians about
cool.
grief and
Yeah,
loss because this stuff comes up and some people might not want to watch, and that's fine. Some people might want to, but we do need to, I think it would be healthy to accept that yeah,
totally.
a couple things can be going on at the same time, or you can be this version of yourself, and then you can also be this version of yourself, and it doesn't have to be judged as good or bad.
Totally. Yeah, grief is complicated, and especially, every loss is different, every relationship is different. And yeah, I just think there is definitely humor. Humor is healing when you're ready to hold space for it. Yeah, I definitely think dark humor is something that helps like social service professionals. You don't make these jokes in public, but you'll make them in like a CEU course. Like when you're in supervision, you might, drop, hey, I'm a little less of an asshole today, right? Like, know your audience. But I think, using humor to process grief because there's realness in, you know, um, yeah, like sometimes it's a literal shitstorm. Like sometimes it is, the things that you deal with life, it's messy. It's
Yeah.
messy. And that is also a really hard part, I think, grief is even though I might know it, getting to a point of acceptance is hard. I know that life is temporary. I know that there's no guarantee. I know that like every day is precious with anybody in my life. I know we're not meant to live forever. It doesn't make it harder. It doesn't make it any less hard that I
Mm.
have to let go of that person being here. So yeah, I just think complicated. Grief is complicated, and that is also a journey. That is also
Yeah,
a journey. Yeah.
for sure. I want to get to talk a little bit
Yeah.
more about your work one on one. And I
Sure.
also want to, and maybe if it fits, great. If not, it could just be something another time. But the thing you mentioned before about regulating to rise or regulating,
Mm,
talk to me a little bit about, because we did talk about when you're dysregulated
yeah.
versus regulated, and then what it means then so that you're capable or you're in a space where you can rise or do,
Yeah.
feel that you can move forward.
Yeah, I feel like this applies to just everybody when we think about, like, so we talked about like the nervous system, the idea of picturing a window, like an actual window. This is how I explain polyvagal theory, where we have the vagus nerve and it gets dysregulated. And the more stressors and traumas and negative things that they shrink our window. They just shrink our window, literally shrinks our ability to see things the way they really are, feel things the way they are. And those are all little things, big things, all the things we mentioned, loss, trauma, abuse, poverty, just name it. And it's just shrinking my ability to process in a regulated way, right? Then I'm still the same size person, right? My energy is still that same, but I'm getting shrunk in that window. So I'm eventually getting pushed up and out into like explosion, anger, activation, that fighting, that flighting, or I'm shrinking down below and I'm isolating, avoiding, dissociating, freezing, all of that. The way that we crack that window open is self-care, awareness, communication, connection, all of those things that we're talking about. Oh my God, I'm starting to feel like, hey, when I'm in a traumatic situation, do I even recognize what's happening all the way around me? Something as simple as grounding to your space, looking around, tuning into my senses, popping a mint, like just to bring me back to present day, pops that window open. So if we're visualizing what is shrinking me, condensing me, like also my body's part of that too. So like expansion, that's part of that yogic, like just taking a breath, stretching, like literally expanding. Just if you can start looking at your nervous system like my personal window, and I am not at my optimal functioning if I am scrunched. Like, how do I get to my optimal functioning? we're not at that every day. We're not even sometimes at that multiple times a week. Sometimes we are in a great season where we're just like that window's popped open every day. It's great. It's usually on vacation. But just finding ways that you can tune in with where you're at. Um, and there's lots of mind, body, spirit practices that, again, the stress and the things we've talked a lot about mentally, but how does it impact us physically? Like the way that we hunch, the way that we crunch, like you literally look at your body during a stress response, and a lot of times it is the tension, the squishing, and thinking about the window closing, closing, closing. So I know that's kind of my metaphor and my visual. I didn't make up the window of tolerance, but like applying visuals like that is a great way to start tuning in with what you need. And also what's realistic, like what can you do in the moment, right? So does that answer the question that you were wondering about with
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I love that like the visual of it and
Mhm.
like seeing it. And I also love what you said about grounding. And again, that was something that I heard from Lee. Like I love walking in the morning on the dewy grass. Like I love how that feels on my
Yeah.
feet. But I love the example you gave too of even popping a mint in about that.
Yep.
That brings you into like, because who would think that? They'd be like, what the hell does a mint have to do with it? Is it my coffee breath? What is it like? But it's like that.
Yeah.
I like that's a simple thing and
Senses.
bringing you back into the present moment. I love that example.
Yeah, I mean, it truly, truly, like yoga does not have to be on a mat. It can literally just be like, I'm gonna do some cat cows in my chair. I'm just gonna expand my breath. Like to me, that's the that's the hard part though. Like as somebody that does go into functional freeze quite a bit, um, I just sometimes like I know it would feel great to walk in the dew. I know it would feel great after I do the thing. Um, but I just think if you're already in the functional freeze part and you're already activated in one way or the other, it's really hard to even slow your mind enough to ask the question, what do I need? So
Mm.
sometimes it might until you start really stacking habits, setting reminders for check-ins. Like maybe you have like our watches go off and say you need more steps. Having little reminders throughout the day that you can stack on. Every time I do this thing, let me just add 5 deep breaths, right? Every time I do this thing, and some of us live in our bodies more than we do our heads, or vice versa. So like again, it's not one size fits all. It's really just sitting and doing like an inquiry of how does this impact you and how does this help you?
Yeah. And would you say that's at the crux of what you do with the one-on-one work or not?
Totally. Yeah. I think a lot of what I like to do in one-on-one work is like, so, you know, a lot of us are entrepreneurs at heart and we have so many great ideas. And we hold ourselves back with like negative thinking, limiting beliefs, a lot of that imposter syndrome. So to sit with somebody and help them understand where they are special and where they are unique and that there is a space for all of us at the table. We all do something a little differently. I think, again, that's that part of that vulnerability of what messages are you giving yourself that, because our nervous system exists for a reason to keep us safe. Anytime we go out of our comfort zone, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that's trying to be visible, that like, hey, let me post this blog or let me do this thing, your nervous system is screaming, this isn't safe, come back, come back. And I just think when you learn to harness, you can really just like rise into your fullest potential. But a lot of us are entrepreneurial spirit. There's dreams and plans we kick along. Yeah, I've been meaning to launch my own podcast for probably 3 years. My friends are sick of hearing about the dream of my podcast. Glad to be on yours, happy to be on yours. But like, there is something safe about, but it's not my podcast. So, like, I think when you can realize that fear and discomfort is a part of growth, and it's temporary. Sometimes people need one-on-one work with that because it's vulnerable to talk about some of the limiting beliefs I have. It's also maybe they've never done a lot of the somatic work of tuning in with breath work, learning which yoga poses I need based on my doshas, right? Based on how I experience the world or what energizes or depletes me. It's a personal journey. And also when I think about higher purpose, meaning, like
Mm.
that's different for people too. So I think I really love to do workshops and I love to do small group events, but people do also like to do one-on-ones to kind of process a little bit of how does this particularly impact me, or I didn't want to share that in a group setting. But yeah, I love to do group workshops and things like that because there's just a great energy and dynamic and just like peer learning space. So yeah,
Hmm.
both of those are mine. Yeah.
And is the workshop similar along the lines of what you just said, but just not one on one, but it's discussing kind of the same ideas?
Same thing, just trying to understand our nervous systems, trying to understand there might be like guided journaling prompts. And then again, like there's usually a meditation component with it so we can process what we brought up and what we thought about. And then there's maybe some breathing to get into the meditation. And then there's just a guided meditation to help process and maybe pull out some inspiration from higher self, things like that. And then, yeah, a lot of times that's what people enjoy. And yeah, sometimes they want to take that journey a little further for self-reflection.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Thanks.
What I know you said there's a lot of ideas you still have. So do you want to share any others that you're like they're in the distance, but wait for them, they're coming? Anything else you want? Because I know you have some, but I don't know what you want to like throw out there into the universe to hear.
Sure, sure. So, and this is like the ironic part is that like I have been building like an asynchronous course where again, like, hey, here's the modules, here's the thing. I'll learn on my own, and then we come together in the group space. And then from that group space, we process. So you know, trying to build a nervous system regulation course while I'm having probably one of the most dysregulated seasons I've had in years. December 2025, Shay was just so naive when she was doing her vision board and thinking about, oh, we're just right around the corner from launching this thing. And then, I mean, boom, 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 boom. So many of life events, and I'm still here and I'm still standing and I'm still here and I know that it's part of the lesson. What is it teaching me? Well, stay tuned because I'm sure there'll be an antidote about that when I finally do finish recording the course. But the course is going to be called Regulate to Rise. And it's for my growth mindset folks, my aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs who just want to hone in, gain a little bit more knowledge, personalize this information and really like solidify what their next step is to become the most badass version of themselves, right? Rising to that level, which I can't do when I'm constricted, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I wish you luck with that. And I know
Thanks.
it'll happen at the right time, obviously. But like you said, life's throwing you some things right now.
Totally.
So
Yes.
once that stuff settles, I know that it sounds like it's going to be a wonderful course. And obviously I love what you're saying.
Thanks.
Very relatable, very knowledgeable, and it's something we could all benefit from. As we start to close, I do want to talk a little bit about something really important that you brought up about like I think this is part of your day job,
Mhm.
this idea of bringing the mental health aspect into I think you said for job seekers, but also are you also addressing it too, you said from like the people who actually do the hiring as well to consider this component?
Yeah, so I work for a company called EDSI. They're a great company. They're multiple states, but locally we have some contracts inside of places like PA CareerLink. So I'm actually traveling to another office today. I'm doing a staff presentation tomorrow. So things that I get to do for fun would be trauma-informed training. So me and another coworker, Matt, were delivering moving from trauma informed to trauma responsive, right? Because knowing is one thing. How do we actually implement it is another. So that's one thing that we do is and start instead of just stopping at, hey, our participants or our clients might be dealing with some stuff. Here's how we have some difficult conversations. We're also saying, hey, you also have a nervous system. You also are primed for burnout. So it's a way to kind of respond to the stress that our staff might be having too. So wellness initiatives, not just to serve our clients and to implement and give them what they need as job seekers, but also like staff deals with a lot of sometimes tough conversations. And then also, just with funding coming and going, and anytime something is grant funded, there's changes and turnover. And I just think it's always a stressful cycle every 12 months when you have a program year. So I think this is timely. June is usually timely where I travel to the other offices and get to do staff retreats and self-care and burnout protection. And again, just talking a lot about the things that these simple concepts of the window of tolerance and what's my burnout protection plan. And no matter how many times I make it, are we doing it? Because it gets chaotic and it gets hard. And so like having constant reminders and building in just again like improving psychological safety 1% at a time, 1% at a time, and just like really trying to shift work culture has been really cool. Really cool. And it's different site to site, but yeah, I get to go to some cool places and give the staff these great tools as well.
That's awesome. And it's so important. I mean, we just finished May was Mental Health Awareness Month. I do one of my marketing clients, media relations is NAMI, National Alliance on Mental
Oh,
Illness, the
cool.
Northeast region. So I work with them writing like news releases, some of their social media content and all that. And so I keep I get alerts about mental health. And I know NAMI, the national NAMI, had released a survey, and I won't try to quote because I don't remember specifics, but it was a really a good high percentage of from the survey of employees who want more
Yeah.
mental health conversations and mental health aid and programs in the workplace. So that is something like it is something really important. And I feel like it's probably at the highest level we've seen. I mean, the pandemic was like a whoof, but
Yeah.
now I just feel like it's still at that level even higher. I mean, we all need something, even the folks who are probably like, well, I don't, whatever, because they
Yeah.
don't like that stigma. But everyone's got stress. It's like,
Yeah.
just how do you handle it? But, and then depending on the workplace, depending on the toxicity of like the structure of like leadership, management, there's so many things that it just really does need to be addressed.
Totally. And I think there's not one person who couldn't benefit from processing, talking, getting support. And if there is somebody who hasn't been through well and happy for them, and that's their lived experience. But I mean, like 1 in 5, the statistic is something like 1 in 5 in the US has a mental health challenge. And we are the workforce, you know? So like while I think a job and employment does support good mental health outcomes. It's really great. Some of us have never been unemployed, never been underemployed, and maybe that's the lens we're bringing into our workplace. But some of us are re-entering the workplace from a place of I was incarcerated, or I came from maybe some, an abusive situation, or I come from GED and this is my first grown-up job. There's lots of different ways people enter the workforce versus just the traditional high school, college, got the job, got the promotion. So I think the empathetic lens of we all have a different experience. Yeah, I think tuning into what staff wants and needs and just assuming that we're humans, so we need this. And also just the way the market is going, like integrated wellness, this is where the market is going, where employers who are leaning into this, they're actually for every like $1 they spend, they end up saving four. I don't know how accurate that statistic is based on where I heard it,
Mm.
but that you're saving that on productivity, on people, calling out. Like when we give people balance and we give people a place to take care of themselves, that actually boosts our ability to focus. Thinking about that window, um, am I showing up with a constricted window? Do I have a place in a space that allows me to, address that? Yeah, I think those are workplaces that are human-centered and prized to have great outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah. I know when I would go and present on laughter and humor, I would often cite the statistic. And again, I don't know American Institute of Stress, I don't know what their,
Yeah.
background really is. But I mean, the statistic was, the cost was high enough that it was like millions to billions of
Yeah.
dollars that are in lost productivity or like time off from stress alone. And then what stress leads to heart conditions, heart attack,
Yeah.
all of those things. So it just makes perfect sense to have different trainings, programs, some kind of support in place to help employees with these things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really cool the work that you're doing too. Yeah, I think finding a way to talk about this in an approachable way, that's where it's at. I think what we call it, how we present it. So there's marketing with everything if we want people to be consumers of it. And there is a place and a space for everything. And so again, we only go so far when we're bringing these concepts to the workplace. We still want to be professional when we're hosting a group workshop. We still want to keep people safe. So I'm always thinking about safety. I'm always thinking about the appropriateness of the space. But yeah, I mean, these concepts apply everywhere we go. We bring ourselves. And I think
Mm.
the person that you were John Kabat-Zinn, He's the
Yes.
creator. Yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
he has a book that's like wherever you go, there you are. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, all of this stuff is whatever in the grand scheme of it. It is me, it is my peace, it is my emotions, it's my perception. And do I want to add to the chaos or try to find ways to create peace? So yeah, that's kind of the guiding light is like I said, every couple of seasons I'm dealing with a new life lesson, and it makes me like almost like the nesting dolls that you see, like those Russian, like I just keep opening up a different version. And this version is like, how do I find peace among the chaos? Because I certainly did not sign up for this chaotic season, didn't expect it, caught me off guard. And that's the other lesson too, is like I had in my head a timeline. I was launching this course on X day. And it was like as soon as I bought the microphone to record, it was this, then it was this, then it was this. And I would just recalibrate and I would get dysregulated all over again. And I just think maybe that's part of the lesson is how do it was too easy. It was too easy to write the scripts. It would have been too easy to record them. No, I have to live it too. I think I have to live it to really understand that like sometimes rising also means resting. And this was my season of rest. And that's okay. There's no timeline. That I was a self-created timeline and I'm still right on time, right on time. It led me to this conversation with you, which again, I have to just sit with what's the deeper meaning of that and how can I utilize it to open up that next version of me?
Yeah. And I want to say like so all of like what you're saying and the whole mindfulness course of like what really struck me is the whole like idea of Oliver how our discontent comes from wishing things were different. I've in addition to doing laughter yoga, like I spoke recently at a women's breakfast luncheon up at Wayne Memorial Hospital, sponsored it, and I had done laughter yoga 2 years ago. This year they said, well, what can you talk on about this year? And it went over really well, and I want to actually expand on it and start offering
Yeah.
it in different places. The idea of I learned from improvisation years ago, the main principle is yes and. And so
Yep.
the idea is to create something on stage instead of conflicting or blocking what the person is bringing you. It's yes and, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, I wanted this, but it's yes and I think that's so important in life and kind of like you're adapting. So it's about
Yep.
adapting and flex, but it's also about what do I do with what I have at this moment? It may
Yeah.
not look anything like what I had hoped it would look like. It could look like the exact opposite, but and it doesn't mean that you have to love it either. And I when I gave this talk, I said, don't be confused. I'm not trying to tell you to put up with crap. Like, I mean, if you have a
Yes.
relationship that's not healthy, get out of it. That's not what I mean. But like things that like, okay, there's so much going on right now, and I didn't want this to be here, but I can't change it right now.
Yeah.
So what can I do to move forward in a healthy way that's also positive. And it really did. A lot of people resonated with the message. And I just think it's something that we could all benefit from
Mhm.
because it is that idea. And believe me, I'm not someone who always follows it, my own, message, but I think it is important because it's like,
Totally.
what do we have in front of us now? How do we move forward? And I think for me, taking the mindfulness course, I just finished it at the end of April. It was like a light bulb because I was like, that's what that's about. Because when you
Mhm.
sit and go, I want this to be different, you're not yes anding it. And I think for women too, I wanted to make clear when I gave that, my last presentation is it doesn't mean saying don't, I want to be clear. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything because a lot of women say yes because we're the
Oof.
caregivers, we're the this, we're the that. Yes anding also looks like saying no
Yep.
because you're yes anding your boundaries. I did that recently. I was supposed to be part of this group of women I'm friends with are presenting a workshop in June. I was on board with them and I was in the planning stages. And as my father was sick and I'm all this stuff, and I'm like, I have my podcast. I want to do stuff to celebrate the anniversary. And that's important to me because it's my brand. And I said, I'm not going to do this justice. I didn't want to step out of it, but I had to yes and my boundaries.
Totally.
And so I think that's important people to really understand. Yes and isn't yes, I'm going to do more, but it's yes and like this is my reality and how am I going to handle it in a healthy way for me and a positive way. So I
Yeah.
just think that kind of like there's some definitely parallel there with what you're saying.
Absolutely. Capacity, knowing your capacity and what serves like again, the bigger vision, the higher purpose. That was lessons a handful of seasons ago was, wow, I say yes to things I don't really want to do. I say no at first, I get talked into it, and then I am irritated. I am resentful. And I had to sit with a resentful version about 2 years ago. And I had to say, well, like, where is this resentment coming from? Well, it's coming from them. Like, they're pissing me off. No, it's coming from you continuing to say yes to things you don't really want to do. And again, that was uncomfortable to reach to like reframe and retrain even the people that you're interacting with. But one step closer to authentic self. I think that's the purpose of with or without your acceptance, this version of me has to say yes to this or no to that, right? Yeah. I think you also like hit it on the head with you don't have the you just you're not going to do it justice. I think when we spread ourselves too thin, it's a balancing act of I don't want to miss an opportunity, and I also need to honor what I need in this moment. And sometimes you're not going to get it right. Okay, you this is the other thing I'm working on with one thing I work on with clients is this like getting stuck in the decision portion of
Mm,
I'm afraid I'm not going to make the right decision. And this is that part of like higher power, like spirituality. Like I have faith in myself that no matter what decision I make, I will right it. Like, does that make sense? Like, instead of focusing so much on, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this right? Is this wrong? It doesn't matter. Even if you quote misstep, you can always have the ability to right your decisions. And that
yes.
has been like game changing for so many people. Just that, again, like what are some quick phrases, some quick, like you cannot possibly remember volumes and volumes and volumes of research, but like, how can I simplify this in enough to have a takeaway? And yeah, I just think faith that you can always right the decision is gets us out of the anxiety spiral as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. And I agree with what you said too before about the like interesting the saying yes to things when you didn't want to, resentment.
Hmm.
I got that way with my business because
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's like and this I'll take some responsibility because maybe it's in the branding, maybe it's what I put out, but because it's a feel good, it is still an LLC. It's not I don't have a backer. It's like this is, a business, this is how I pay the bills. I get asked a lot by organizations who simply either don't have the budget or do not have the budget. They're not making the budget for this. And there has been through the years, and I don't say this with judgment, I say it with reality. In fact, I'm celebrating 20 years in August. I have been
Amazing.
approached numerous times with the expectation that I will come and speak to a group or like share my talent, my knowledge, my skills for free.
Yeah.
And a shame on me because I was getting resentful because I was saying yes. Or I
Yeah.
was accepting that, well, I guess they don't have a budget or whatever. And quite frankly, at 54, I'm kind of like, I'm over that. And I still will like work with organizations who have next to nothing or nothing. If I really like, okay, I love the heck out of this organization, their mission,
Yeah.
whatever, and I'm going to make time for this. But I wish, and that's not a wish, but like it's been part of my journey this past couple of years to try, and I need to get back to it, educating to the public or like the decision makers or the
Yeah.
people who reach out. Keep in mind, you would not go to work and not get a paycheck. So
Mhm.
remember when you're asking a speaker, when you're asking a performer or whatever, there's don't expect something for free. But I was doing a lot of that work
Mhm.
and it did get me a little bit burnt out and resentful because I was saying yes, sometimes out of, I call it Catholic guilt, but I know there's Jewish guilt, there's other kinds of guilt. And I was feeling like, all right, let's get laughing here. And I was not happy about doing it because I'm like,
Sure.
I'm sick of being taken advantage of, but I'm better now. I'm still not great with my pricing and asking for what I deserve and
I
feeling
hear
I
you.
deserve it.
I
But
hear
I
you.
am better
Yeah.
at saying that, what's your budget? Because I'm not just doing like freebies because I got
Absolutely.
resentful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that goes back to like, hey, we can be creatives and we can be healers and we can have great gifts that we want to share. And there's some places, spaces, and opportunities that like, hey, I will talk about this to anybody who will listen. But there's also like, yeah, you have you have to honor yourself as well with the bigger picture for your business. And sometimes the free events or the non-paid events, like they're worth their value because of the exposure that you might get, the connections you might have, or that it might just like feed your soul that day. I think when I could get a free ticket to an event that I would have gladly paid for, yeah, I'll do a workshop in the morning so I could attend your yoga classes all day. I just think It's an exchange of energy. That's also like one philosophy about it is like we're always exchanging energy, even if it's not money. Sometimes it is literally money, but like yeah, there needs to be an energy exchange for it to be valuable and worthwhile and for people to value what you're giving. Yeah, definitely. It's a journey. It's a journey, especially when somebody asks you what is the fee for this or that, and I think you go back to there is something about money. There is something about asking for money or you know, but knowledge should be. And to me, I think the podcast is great because for me, that was always the vision of having the podcast was connecting. So I mean, synergy with Shay, she might be on the horizon, but it's all connecting mind, body, spirit professionals in the healing world. And again, just like talking about these free nuggets of information because not everybody can afford the luxury of a ticket to an event and people should be able to have the knowledge to heal themselves. So for me that's the social justice of yeah, I want to get paid to do the thing, but also I would love to share my knowledge with people on a bigger platform. So like for me that's the vision of the podcast that may or may not be coming. We'll see. It has a name, it has, a logo, it has a couple guests on it. You're one of them now. So, stay tuned.
I love it. And yet that's a great start. A name and a logo is a great start. That's actually how mine got started. I had the name and I had a former student from King's create my logo for the podcast and for Funny Wine Girl. And I was like, all right, now I'm ready to go. And yeah, I mean, when you're ready,
I
it will
guess I got
happen.
to do it. I have the microphone now. I guess I have to do it.
I will just tell you, obviously, when you know your limits, your boundaries, but when you're ready, you can do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
when I'm
just
ready. And I definitely, yeah, it's an interesting season. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That'll be a good chapter of the memoir because I'm going to write a memoir too. Stay tuned. I don't know what decade that one's coming, but this is great material, real life material. Yep.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I love it. I love every bit of it. Well, we have had a very rich conversation. I love it. I love everything you're saying, honestly. And again, what you said, I'm going to have to clip out that one part, then I'll just like put it in my ear when I sleep at night about like the not getting activated or remembering like
I
to
said
be,
so many things.
you
Yeah.
said a lot of good stuff, but for me, like with the piece for myself, it like I remember that piece from the mindfulness class, and it's just like, my energy and protecting my own mental
Yeah.
health, and it is so important. And it's like showing up from a space of kindness and like realizing be kind to yourself right now because going crazy, screaming and like getting worked up is it really does. And the thing about it, I always get frustrated with myself because it's like I know it doesn't serve me, like flipping
Yeah.
out doesn't serve me. Like I could scream, I could, oh my
Yeah.
God, like it doesn't serve me and it
But
doesn't
you didn't
change
you didn't
things.
get to logic yet. Like you didn't even have a chance to pause. Like when you're like practice the pause. Well, I'm three activations beyond that. But we
Yes.
just keep trying. Yeah, we just every moment's another opportunity and that's hopeful. I'm trying to lean into a joyful whatever that looks like and means. And this was a really great way to start my June. So thanks for reaching out and I really enjoyed our conversation. I can't wait to keep in touch and cheer you on.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to your future too and to cheering you on as well, but I'd love to meet up in
Thanks.
person sometime when you have
Totally.
time
Yep.
because I love your energy and I love what you had to say. So again, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it, Shay.
My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
So thanks for listening, everyone. This is June. We're into it. I have, like I said, I had mentioned earlier, the woman, the founder of Women Make Movies. I'm super excited to have her on. We're looking at early July, so that will probably air in mid-July. I'm going to be talking to Holly Browning, who is a local. She's actually also in the social workspace, and we're going to be talking about a similar, not exact same conversation. We're going to talk about Pride Month being June, and that will be part of our conversation. But as I say each week, too, if there is someone in your life that you think would make a great guest, I do like to focus on women each week. So if there's a woman that you're like, Aunt Sue is a wonderful person. She does this, that, and the other thing. First, go talk to Aunt Sue and say, hey, Aunt Sue, do you like to talk to you about yourself? Would you like to share your story on a podcast? And then connect me. That would be great. Or maybe you're the person. Maybe you have something that you would really like to share. Reach out to me. Funny Wine Girl Janine on Facebook, Instagram, Janine Luby. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn or Facebook. And if you would like to support conversations like this, because they are important, feel free to reach out about podcast sponsorship packages packages. They are a range of affordable packages, but I also have one-time shout outs if you're having an event, or maybe you have a new business and you just want to give a shout out for your business, your website, whatever. That's a one-time $25. Otherwise, I have other packages. Just reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you about those. But also remember, I understand that budgets can be tight. And you can also really help as well by sharing the podcast. Share it with a friend, foe, anyone you know, and maybe give it a review, a rating. Go on to Apple Podcasts, give it 5 stars. Come on, why don't you? All right. Thank you so much. As I say each week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.